We love what we do. That's what people forget. Every farmer would lie if they didn't say we didn't love what we did.
I came down to the farmers' protest outside 10 Downing Street to interview farmers.
We can work it out, and if we've done on our yearly income, my accountant reckons with the hours we do, we work below minimum wage, and we're a lot below minimum wage on our own farm.
And I focused on 3 questions. What's the biggest issue in farming? What's been the impact of Brexit? And do they have a message for the government?
What is the biggest issues affecting farming at the moment?
Well, we can see inheritance tax is a big issue here today. So many farmers are down here. But we've got to think there's other issues as well within the industry. You know, we're not getting a fair price for what we're producing. NVZs, you know, these nitrates, vulnerable zones, another big problem for Wales.
At the minute, this inheritance tax, and that they're literally taxing us on our knees. Everything we do, we get taxed for, and all we're trying to do is feed the nation and carry on with our family heritage that has been going for years.
Well, although the inheritance tax is taking up all of the media bandwidth, there is loads of stuff that the government are doing to undermine our food supply in Britain. The largest of which is simply that we are in an agricultural transition, and we have moved away from the post-war consensus that provided cheap, nutritious food for urban people, and British food is being undermined. We have to rely on imports, and that really is the crux of the problem here.
Farming is unviable financially, and it's been building for decades, but recently Brexit has intensified that fight and problem and struggle.
Another big problem in Wales is TB, tuberculosis within our cattle, and I think it's because we have an overpopulation of badgers, and that's what we need to be, you know, addressing. And I'm not talking about going out and killing every badger. I'm talking about having a scientific review of this, going out, testing the sets. If them sets are unhealthy, we then have to, you know, dispatch of them badgers so we can have a healthy badger population and a healthy cattle population. But as well, we are losing a lot of our ground nesting birds, our hedgehogs and our bumblebees, and that's because there's an overpopulation of badgers. So please, please, please listen to the people that are working the land, the farmers. That's what we're here for. We want to keep this country fed sustainably, affordably and environmentally friendly, and we're here to do it, but we can't if we keep getting the problems we are getting from government. So these people, these numpties behind us in 10, 11 Downing Street want to listen to the hard-working, honest farmers that are feeding them every single day.
The concern with America, how getting that cheap but low quality beef in versus maybe the opportunity to just export lamb into the States?
Well, we just can't compete with it. They have economies of scale that we can't have in this country while maintaining the environment in the way that the public wants us to do. They can use products that we can't. So either we need to be allowed to use those products, or imports have to be held to the same standard as the stuff we produce. Otherwise, we just cannot compete. We need a fair playing field.
See, the thing that always concerns me with it is when you lose that land, you then have to take an entire generation to get it back.
Oh, it won't. That won't happen in our area. There'll be no coming back in our area. In our area, there will be no coming back. We're a 90-acre farm, so we are as small as they're small, which Miss Reeves reckons that we're going to fall underneath the spectrum and we'll be under. But that won't happen in ours, because where our land is, it will never get sold for agricultural land. We're in the middle of a village. They'll sell it for housing. They've had developers trying to get it off his dad for years, and he's told them for the last 20, 30, 40 years that we are not building on it. We're a traditional heritage farm.
The biggest issue in farming at the moment, UK-wise, is essentially, one, this inheritance tax. 2, obviously, there's a big demand from government to have rewilding settlements in the UK. One of the big issues is we need to balance that with food security. So the biggest concern for young people at the moment is, do I have industry to go into, and do the government have my best interests in heart when it comes to future policies they want to be making?
There's several issues facing farming at the moment. You've got climate change, the weather, you've got foreign imports, you've got the inheritance tax, and they all just come together to completely just destroy our backs, really, and leave us not knowing, do we plan for the future, do we sell up, do we pack up and go to France, or what do we do?
So amongst a lot of things, I'd say the inheritance tax is really a big thing. This is why we are here in London today. Amongst other businesses, because we are hit by now the 15% increase in national insurance the employees have to pay. But it's not just the 20% tax that we are taxed on for the inheritance tax, it's also a 40% tax on buildings and machinery. And by the time you've got a combine harvester, which nowadays can be £500,000, you know, you're soon up to that 1 million threshold which we're allowed. And my stepfather, he is fifth generation, I'm sort of the sixth, and the farm has been running for over 130 years now. His mother's 80, she still comes to the office every single day. She's worked her whole life since she was maybe 6 when she started to drive the tractors, and she now feels like a burden to the family, which is really sad. And after 2026, she's wondering whether it's life or death, because she feels like she's too much.
The biggest problem we have is the government may listen, but they don't act on it. They try to bring in the inheritance tax, which is not going to help us, because if we have no farmers, we have no food. Before the budget, what they did, they seem to have had Bill Gates and Larry Fink from BlackRock in at number 10. And then, lo and behold, Rachel from Accounts puts the budget out, and it says about inheritance tax for farmers. And people wonder why we're a special case. The reason we're a special case, you don't need a car, you don't need a telephone, and you do not need a television. But you've got to eat 3 times a day.
Our farm doesn't provide for us. So you've got me, my husband and my 2 children and my mother and father-in-law on our farm. And all of us work externally. So my mother-in-law works in a bakery. I used to work with care home. I used to work with the elderly. I did, and the dementias on the side, because our farm couldn't fund our living. We couldn't fund our living, but because we're self-employed, we don't get the benefits that people on 9-to-5 jobs. So I couldn't get any help with my children's fees or anything like that. We can't get no benefits or anything like that, because with our self-employment and our rates go so up and down, we can't get the paperwork together. So where does that leave us as a whole? We get buggered in every cent.
Then we got on to the impact of Brexit.
What's been the impact of Brexit on farming?
It's been decimating. We've had removal of support. The promises have not been delivered. They were betrayed. We've had terrible trade deals undercutting us. And we face even worse challenges as the America trade deal is on the table again, you know, and it's horrific. We will not survive an American trade deal.
Few papers and financial institutions have said that Brexit's cost us 40 billion in tax revenues, which coincidentally seems to be the amount that the government's just raised it. So I'm just going, isn't that a Brexit impact? And no one seems to be talking about.
I think you'll find the government's just found us as an easy out.
Yes.
We've been silent for years. We've let them get on with it. They've taxed every way that they can now. Everywhere that wasn't taxed, they're now taxed us for. And I understand everyone has to pay taxes. And we're not complaining about the fact that we have to pay it. It's the fact that by us paying it, you're now not going to have farmers. There won't be us. There will not be no food. Go import it. Because we saw how COVID got us. You couldn't get foreign foods and everyone come back to us farmers. So when we stop the farmers' foods, then what? What happens then? Because the imports can't keep up.
I think we're grossly misled. You know, there's a lot of rumours, farmers vote for Brexit. Farmers are people. People vote for Brexit.
Brexit has been a disaster for agriculture. It's not true that all farmers voted for Brexit. If you take into account the fact that a lot of farmers are older men, they actually voted for Brexit less than that demographic as a whole. I, for example, didn't vote for Brexit because I was a child when it happened. And back then, my family were milking 100 cows on our small farm. We were employing about 2.5 people. We were producing lots of cheap, nutritious food. But since coming out of Europe, we've been undermined completely. We struggle to get labour now because the exchange rate shifted, of course, and then the Romanians and the Poles that were prepared to do the work on our farm went home. This is, of course, before Clarkson's farm, and you had more English people taking interest in the countryside. And the support that the government used to provide to agriculture was preserved by the EU's Common Agricultural Policy. So now that's been taken away, British farmers are really struggling, and it's finished our business.
How's Brexit affected farming for you?
Brexit, I was a Remainer, believe it or not. I always thought it was going to be, better to be in than out. But look, it has been very fortunate for the Welsh lamb industry that we had an open market to Europe with lamb. So our lamb prices are doing really well. Beef prices are doing well, but that's only where it should be. We're getting paid now what we should have been quite a long time ago. So going forward, we need to keep a fair price for what we're producing, but we do not want to make the poorer people in society not be able to afford healthy, nutritious food. And that's why we need subsidies, to make sure that people are fed properly.
Noise today.
Yeah, I will do, mate.
I think it's had some really negative impacts on farming. The lack of subsidies has obviously meant that every farmer has been encouraged to diversify. Now, while that works great from an like a rewilding point of view and try and make the natural England more sustainable, it does massively impact our ability to produce food. We're not able to actively compete against European countries or countries that want to import cheap food to the UK. And it's a real worry for us that essentially that might not come back at all from this government or future governments, because we can't support that without Brexit, or without the EU, sorry. So
the impact on Brexit, it should or could have been a good thing. Unfortunately, it was never really implemented. It still hasn't been, and they fudge around it all the time. We've got so much opportunity out there, but we can't use those opportunities because our hands are tied each time.
What do you think that hand tying is specifically?
There's various things, because at the end of the day, they want us to do what they think they want us to do. We look after animals far better. We grow the crops better in this country. You cannot beat the British food. But over there, they're not building it, making it the way that we do because of their rules and regulations. And as I say, Brexit would have worked if it had been implemented.
And finally, what was their message to Starmer and the government?
Open your doors, open your ears, and start to listen to the working people of this country. And you are going to need us once, twice, or 3 times every day. Back British agriculture, build a better Britain on our bellies, and let's have a farming food revolution.
Listen to us. We're not trying to trip you up here. We think you've just got this slightly wrong. We don't even disagree with the principles of the inheritance tax. You need to deal with the problem of investors in land. That would help us. So we're not against you. We're just asking you to please come and speak to us, and hopefully we can come up with an arrangement that would help everybody.
Do you have a message for the government?
Yeah, work with us.
Please come and listen. Even just come and sit. Come onto a farm, sit at the table, have a drink, and talk to the farmers.
It was honestly amazing to see just how much they were crying out to be listened to, and how the government seems to have walled itself off, despite the fact that tractors had parked themselves outside 10 Downing Street. As usual, I'd love to know your thoughts on what the farmers had to say, both about the issues, Brexit, and the government. In the meantime, I want to say a big thank you to all of my Patreon YouTube subscribers. You keep this channel going and growing. Hit that like and notification button. And thanks for listening. Bye for now.